a limited ground incursion into Lebanon. CBS, the BBC's partners in America, say they were told by an official that the incursion could start as soon as today. In the past hour, President Biden has said he is opposed to any ground invasion. The Israeli Defense Minister had said that the next phase of the war against Hezbollah will begin soon. That was the quote he used in the last few minutes. Well, earlier in the day, he visited the Lebanese border, where he said Israel was ready to use forces from air, sea and land to achieve its objectives and ensure people who'd been evacuated from their homes in northern Israel were safe to return. Well, Hezbollah's deputy leader has insisted that the group is ready if Israel decides to invade Lebanon. In a defiant speech, he said the battle against Israel will continue. And in a separate development, Lebanon's Prime Minister said he's ready to deploy the country's army to defend the border area if needed. So let's take stock of where we are tonight. Let's speak to our correspondents, John Donaldson in Jerusalem, Tom Bateman in Washington and Anna Foster in Beirut. And to John, first of all. And John, all the indicators point to this ground incursion, this ground invasion starting pretty soon.
Yeah, that's right. The Defence Minister, Yoav Gallant, as you were saying, suggesting it could happen as soon as today. So that's really within the next few hours. I think the big question is, what will this ground incursion involve? We understand that already some Israeli special forces have been into Lebanon, carrying out intelligence operations, possibly dismantling some tunnels and infrastructure. But I think the question is, to what extent are the Israelis going to push into southern Lebanon? How deep are they going to go? Are they going to stay there and try to occupy some territory, or are they going to be going in and crossing back over into Israel? But none of those things are clear at the moment, but it definitely seems like they are going to move to the next phase of the operation, as Mr. Gallant said.
Let's cross to Tom Bateman. He's there in Washington. Tom, we were listening to President Biden and he was asked about exactly this, and he was still saying that he wanted a ceasefire. So there is, again, real tension between the US administration that is constantly talking about de-escalation and an Israeli Prime Minister that, again, is making a move that escalates the situation.
Well, yeah, I mean, President Biden was asked how much he knew about these reports of a limited ground operation starting soon, and also what he made of that. Now, he said that he knew more than the reporter thought, and that he was comfortable with them stopping this. And then, as you say, called for a ceasefire once again. So, you know, a clear sign from the US president that he is not comfortable with the way things are unfolding on the ground once again. But what we have seen throughout this is the same pattern, the same dynamic, in that we've seen US pressure applied diplomatically on the Israelis to try and pull back. You know, that was at its most acute last week, during a week of the United Nations General Assembly, where the Americans were leading a diplomatic charge, calling for a truce between Israel and Hezbollah, calling for mediated talks, calling for them to pull back from the brink. And we saw the absolute rejection of that by Benjamin Netanyahu last week, you know, within 24 hours of the Americans making the call. And some officials were briefing to expect the Israelis to release a statement that would warm to this ceasefire, effectively welcoming it. And what we saw in action was the complete opposite. You know, that vivid image of Benjamin Netanyahu authorizing the strike on Hassan Nasrallah from his hotel room in New York. So I think the Americans have got a pretty clear sign of the degree to which Benjamin Netanyahu is listening to them on this. And not only the fact that what's happening on the ground is moving away from American pressure, but also they're then having to effectively welcome the results of the Israeli actions, because, of course, we've had from across the administration, from the president downwards, them welcoming the killing of Hassan Nasrallah, the president pointing out that Hezbollah was responsible for the killing and kidnapping of many Americans in the past. So they welcome that, but they're at the same time privately extremely concerned about this extremely sharp escalation. And I think that's why we're again seeing President Biden saying they should stop, there should be a ceasefire, but I think events on the ground are clearly now out of the control of the Americans.
Local